Our first speaker will be Josh Pechthalt. Josh, would you please stand so people can see who you are? Josh is you've been president for a year, I think now? President of the California Federation of Teachers.
Yeah, please.
That is the parent organization, the statewide organization of a huge number of teachers' unions in the state of California. It's part of the American Federation of Teachers. My union, the Peralta Federation of Teachers, is part of the CFT. And so, have I missed anything?
I think that's it.
Our second speaker will be Eric Blanc. Eric is a student at Berkeley City College, part of the Peralta District, and he has been working consistently with Occupy Education. Josh, go.
My time. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this. I know it's controversial, and I know people are hugely disappointed, and I recognize that. I think that's throughout the progressive community as well as my union, frankly. Let me give you a little first, just so you know, I was a high school teacher in Los Angeles for 20-some years at an inner city high school, Manual Arts High School. Anybody from LA knows. I've been in the trenches in public education and a leader in the fight in my union to create a democratic reform movement. When the CFT really has been on this now for a couple of years. We did a march through the Central Valley a few years ago to bring attention to the budget crisis. And that was a symbolic move, but an important move to highlight the state of the California budget crisis. 2 years ago, we led the charge on Prop 25 to bring a democratic functioning to the state so that budgets could be adopted on a majority vote instead of 2/3. When we came to this, we knew that the next step had to be to bring in revenue to the state, and that the only way to achieve that was to build the broadest labor community alliance possible, because the next goal of raising revenue and taxing the rich was a monumental task. And I can't overstate how difficult that was going to be. And so we had we set up a broad table, tried to invite in all the labor partners we could, to have that discussion. We knew that it had to be a broad community, and there had to be unity around this because lots of money would come against us. The Kochs writing a check for $40 million, whatever. We began to put this together with a group of unions, and then come December, one of the big unions stepped away from that. That was SEIU. And with that went money. We projected that we would do this campaign with a small budget of about $10 million. Get it on the ballot and then run a campaign. We knew, our assessment was that the state of the movement was not yet strong enough to overcome some real huge institutional obstacles, like money against us, like the chamber and other organizations, that at some point the movement will be strong enough. But it was our estimation that there still needed to be a campaign, a finance campaign. And the proof is that we've had to spend about $2 million for signature gathering, and we've got lots of signatures. Of those 350,000 signatures, not 10,000 are from volunteers. Not 10,000. We thought that once we get going, we're going to get other partners to join in with us. But as the time went by, we saw no labor partners coming to the table with us. None. Zero. The one big union, CNA, that said, we're with you, then made it clear to us they weren't putting in a nickel. And it was my organization putting in everything with, frankly, no money to run a campaign. Now, we talked to the governor early on and said, listen, do you want to work together? We want to work together. He wasn't interested. And we had those conversations over and over. While we were moving our campaign, because we knew that it rang true with people, it had a populist message, and it was the right message. And the governor said no. If you go back a year, please keep in mind that a year ago, what the governor was proposing was a completely regressive special election, extension of vehicle license fees, and simply sales tax increases. And frankly, labor and others supported that as the only option. So when the governor put in his proposal, it actually reflected what we had been doing around progressive taxation. His measure, while there is a regressive component in his original, the sales tax part, actually, the majority is a progressive tax increase on people making $250,000 and above. That's progressive. We would support that. Finally, he got panicked, and we had a series of meetings, and finally, over just in a matter of days, he said to us, we are so worried that you're going to stay in the field, him not knowing that, frankly, our capacity to do that was zip, that we want to work together on this. And we said, well, we'll talk. So what came out of that agreement was a cut in the sales tax from a half cent to a quarter cent. That went from $2 million revenue to $1 million. $2 billion to $1 billion. And a bump up in the progressive tax part. 250, 1%. 300,000, 2%. 500,000, 3%, actually more progressive than our millionaires tax, more progressive, generating $9 billion in that first year. Of this measure, 8/9 of it comes from progressive tax increases on the wealthy. It is a 1%, a tax on the 1%. Ours was not. It was a
time. Sorry, we're going to get an alternate perspective. Point of process?
Can we go through the process proposal to give them another 2 minutes?
Yes, please.
Sure. We weren't going to let's take a
so that's a process proposal. If people are in favor of extending time for 2 minutes, that's
Sorry.
And furthermore, so I'm a high school history teacher. We can talk for hours, right? We can put our crowd to sleep. So we had to make an assessment. Our capacity to go forward or agreeing to something that is the most progressive tax measure in California history, as Steve told me yesterday, and frankly, maybe the most progressive tax measure in American history that now the governor has put together. He has completely changed the nature of his tax measure. Yes, it has a regressive component, but that ends in a short period of time, in 4 years, while the progressive part actually is extended. We couldn't get him to agree to do a permanent, but we have a window of 7 years to take on some other actually more important issues like changing Prop 13 and getting a majority vote to have their legislature raise revenue. That's why we're having to do this through the initiative process, because they can't do it there. My organization and all of the coalition partners have understood through some difficult discussions, because we get that people are hugely disappointed, that this presents the most viable option going forward, because our capacity to do it with the millionaires really had, in many ways, come to an end.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So, first of all, I want to thank Josh for coming. It's sort of a brave move, and on a certain sense. So thank you for coming. I think we are on the same side on this, in the general sense. Specifically, we need to reject the compromise. It's a betrayal of everything we've been fighting for months. What this consists of is basically Brown's proposal plus some number changes. Let's be real. We can't sugarcoat that. Every single reason we rejected Brown's proposal is the reason we should reject the compromise. Because it has a regressive tax, right? Because it expires. Because it doesn't have explicit money going towards higher education where we want it to go. There is no compelling reason to accept this compromise, right? And I think you know that. I think the CFT knows that and feels that maybe we don't have its back. And what this meeting needs to do is say, actually, we do have your back. The assessment you put forward that the movement's not there is false. This millionaires tax has galvanized thousands of people. We were there on March 5th. We were there, and we were there with a clear message. And the CFT needs to realize that we can win this campaign. The CFT has admitted, at least well, to my understanding, that there's enough funds to get it on the ballot. The question is whether there's enough money to get it winning in November, right? So the question is, yes, let's get it on the ballot. We can raise the funds through collective organizing. We can call on the CNA and the unions to raise the funds. We didn't know. You didn't tell us. You didn't tell us there was this money problem. You told us now. We should all go out and say, CNA, put up the money. You say you're with us, put up the money. Community organizations, put up the money. That's what we need. We need leadership from the CFT so we collectively build a mass movement to make this happen. You feel that you've been abandoned, but you haven't really come to us. The other union leaderships have abandoned you. We haven't abandoned you. Okay, second point. How am I doing on time?
You're perfect.
Oh, good. Okay.
Transcribe.
Okay. Okay, so specifically, I think the CFT should immediately break with the compromise, immediately call on all of the people who supported the millionaires tax to say, look, if it's about money, let's get the money. Let's move on to send out a mass email calling on everyone. Move on. Was it 94 or 96%? 94% people said they're in favor of the millionaires tax. Every single move on person sets $100. We get close to where we need to get money-wise. But that hasn't happened. You haven't relied on our ability to build a mass movement to win this. And you need to do it now. And we can do this. Okay, next point. Right. What this measure would do, to be really clear, you're talking about building a broad-based movement, right? That's what you'd like to see. This is part of it. If you accept this compromise, you will single-handedly kill our progressive movement. What you are doing, if you make this, it will be a huge mistake. You are allying with Brown, who represents the 1%, against all of your real friends. We are your real friends. We are the people who marched. I marched 90, well, I didn't march 99. I marched on the 99-mile march. I marched on the 99-mile march. I walked out of my classes. I got arrested, and I sure as hell didn't do that to be sold out at the last minute for a compromise that goes against everything we did that for. And you need to know that. People are really, really, really pissed. And it's not your fault, because you got abandoned. But you're making a mistake. You're making a huge mistake right now, and it's not too late to turn it around. Specifically, when I had to tell the same people that we got collecting signatures, the thousands of people who are energized about this, that at the last minute, when we had victory, when we saw that Brown was on the defensive, that when we had our impact, we saw that Brown was about to back down, that you guys snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory, I started crying. I still cry when I think about it. I feel like throwing up right now to think how close we are to winning this, and how close you are to abandoning the biggest opportunity we have to create the movement. The movement isn't quite there yet, but this has the potential. There's a context of crisis. Students can't get into their classes. You need to rely on us and not on your enemies. Jerry Brown is your enemy. He's not your friend. He's going to betray you. He's not even going to get this onto the ballot. I really implore you to realize how of a huge mistake you made. How am I doing on time? Okay, to take a step back. If you are serious about building a mass movement about this, you cannot throw us under the bus. You cannot throw the people who have supported this and who have mobilized. You cannot basically say, well, sorry, it's actually the alliance with the Brown and the people who've done everything to destroy the progressive millionaires tax. You can't do that to us. The reason why this new compromise is not a good one is that even the fact that most of the money will come from the rich, the very fact that there is a regressive sales tax in it ruins the whole message. It ruins the whole ability for us to change the discourse about what we want to see. It ruins it. And you know that. That's why the millionaires tax is winning. That's why this is the one that can actually win. You are putting on a worse compromise that has less of a chance of winning with people who are against progressive taxation. If you think they're going to fuck with us now, they're going to fuck with us way worse once we have no more chance and no more leverage. What are you thinking? Really? You've seen what Brown does. Brown is a slimy politician. You cannot trust him. You will ruin our message. We cannot mobilize. I will not mobilize for this compromise. I bet you most of the people in this room will not, because we do not think that the crisis should be paid for us. You are asking us to pay for the crisis, even though really that's what the compromise is. You will not be able to build a movement. The CFT will have single-handedly discredited itself amongst all of us. I will never again campaign for the CFT, even though I love what you guys have done with it, and I think most of us will feel like never putting in any more energy, because how do we know you're not going to do this again? You can't take us this far and then fuck us over. Like, really. And I realize it's not your fault. I realize you put yourself on the line. Really. Really. And I'm sorry for using that language. I realize it's not personal. I'm really trying to explain to you how heartfelt so many of us feel about this, and I'm sorry for using that language. Apologies. So, basically, am I on time? Okay.
Yeah, 1 more minute.
Okay, basically, sort of to conclude, I think that it's not too late to turn around. If you were to call out, because we know that Brown's, who knows what shady deals he's going to pull, right? Really, all you need to do is say, bring it up to the CFT, say, look, actually, we consulted with the people who've been organizing a real amount of the millionaires tax. I think we can reconsider. I think that there is enough energy so that we can build this movement together, right? The money, we'll make it happen. We have enough money to get it onto the ballot. The question is, how do we raise in the next, 4 or 5 months enough money to win, right? And personally, I think the way we're going to win is not through the money. They have the money. It's going to be through the people power. And at the very least, I can't guarantee we're going to win. I think we're more likely to win with this than the compromise. But at the very least, we'll go down fighting, or we'll go down winning, and we'll have built the movement in the process. What you do right now will single-handedly destroy or create the ability for us to have a progressive movement for taxation and making the 1% pay or not the 99% pay. If you do the wrong thing, I will cry, and a lot of people will cry. And I think that it's not too late, and I think people are looking to you for real leadership, and now is the time for that.
Courage they showed in taking the stand and being the last one standing on the millionaires tax. While I will be very disappointed and angry if this goes away, if this is dropped, nothing can take away my feelings about my union and my leadership. People are saying that if the millionaires tax doesn't quit, it will hurt other safety net groups and poor people who desperately need funds. And I want to say, we know you're hurting. We're hurting too. We're stripped to the bone at the community colleges, and campuses will start closing. We have students becoming homeless because they can't get their financial aid due to staff cuts. The $1 trillion loan industry to students is reducing our students of the country to debt peonage. We're understaffed and overworked. But poisoned water is not good even to one dying of thirst. And what is this poison? The lie that we should all share in sacrifice. The lie that this little bit of money will stop the bloodletting on our campuses and in our communities. It is the 1% who need to share in the sacrificing we already have. We've been under attack since the late 70s. My daughter's high school often did not have toilet paper, and that was 10 years ago. And it's not just about this money. What will the budget cuts be next year? And there will be cuts. The economy will continue to deteriorate despite all the happy talk from the press and the Democrat-Republican leadership, because its foundations have been undercut. Giant banks are gutting the economy and the government with speculation, and the factories no longer require large numbers of workers. They run by themselves. The millionaire's tax's great sin is that it puts class wealth and privilege up for discussion. We are not allowed to discuss class. There supposedly aren't classes in America. That is why there is such pressure to get this mild little initiative off the ballot and out of our heads. They will offer us things that look like, sort of maybe could look like what we need, just to keep us from thinking about class power in America. But whatever Jerry Brown and the Democratic Party leadership offer us won't be what we need. It will be a sham. So that is also the millionaire's tax's great virtue, because we will not stop the destruction in California and the U.S. and the world without questioning and challenging corporate power. Yeah. That's why I sincerely hope my union, the California Federation of Teachers, will keep this up, stick with it, and move forward. Thank you.
Oh, like that. Woo! Hi, everybody. Just like Gaston said, my name's Yvonne, and I organize with Occupy SFSU. And when I heard the news that the millionaires tax was being co-opted, I was really upset, because I was also one of the marchers that did the 88 miles, and I marched for that. I marched for the ability to be able to go to school, for the future, to not have debt like I do. I have $25,000 of debt. I plan on trying to go to grad school, which is going to be another maybe $50,000 for 2 to 3 years of schooling. And I think that is disgusting. And I think it's disgusting that the working class is being asked to pay for more. And we don't have any more to give. I know I don't. I know my mom doesn't. She works 2 jobs just so she can help me out. And so I feel like we need to continue to back this initiative. We need to continue to fight for it. We need to continue to fight for the working class. We need to continue to fight for education, because I feel like it's a priority to us, but it's not a priority to them. And I think it needs to be, and I think our voices need to be heard. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming, and help spread the word.
Thank you.
I'm here because, like you, I'm very angry. Here we had an opportunity to build a fighting coalition that said we don't have to go along with the deals that are made by the politicians in Sacramento or the union leaders who bent to them, and I will speak to that, sister, thank you. We built a coalition and gave hope to so many young people, and I'm ashamed. I am ashamed because our unions threw in the towel step by step under pressure from the governor.
Yes,
and I'll
they
put
did.
the onus on the governor.
Yes,
for
they
this.
did.
We built in San Francisco a coalition over a year ago to try to put a progressive taxation measure on the ballot. And our message was the millionaires tax. And then we had a governor making deals, offering and threatening unions that if they went along with this, SEIU, CTA, that there would be retaliation. Perhaps pensions, perhaps other things would be targeted. And so our coalition got smaller, to its credit. And I will join my brother from the Peralta Federations. The CFT leadership stuck its neck out and said, we're going to give it a shot. And they put this on the ballot. They were alone. And they said, we're going to go, and they helped us. We were in Sacramento. But this is where I think we have to draw a lesson. It's not enough to do that. We need to tell the truth. If there was a problem with funding, appeal to us. Tell us what's going on. Build the coalition. Let us join you to raise that money. Let us build the kind of fighting coalition that says, as Gaston said here, we don't need shared sacrifice. We don't need to buy into this notion that unless we make a deal with the governor or the Democrats, there's no hope. Yeah. No, we had the opportunity here, and I would say we're going to go forward with it. Whatever happens with this millionaires tax, we have the strength, we have got to draw the lessons that if we're going to win, we're going to count and rely only on ourselves. And our unions better listen to this. They had better listen to this, because we have snatched victory. We have taken away a victory here because we had that victory and we've turned it over to the petitioners and the gatherers and this compromise deal, which accepts all the things that we rejected. And I don't care if it's a difference of 1/4 cent of sales tax. It is the wrong concept. It's that poison pill that has us accept their politics. So we will not accept that. We're going to continue to build this movement. We're going to build it from the bottom up, and hopefully the unions will listen, because what we did is inspire, and none of that which is going to go on with their compromise, whether it may not even pass, by the way. They've got such little time to do it. The governor hasn't withdrawn his thing. He's a swindler and a negotiator. He knows what he did.
He's a Democrat.
So I say, let's not be, we have a reason to be angry, but let's turn that anger into a fighting movement, into a fighting spirit. We're all here because while we are angry and many of us sorely disappointed, we're not going away. We're going to build this movement. We're going to fight within our unions to draw the lessons and to make sure that these deals don't happen. And we're going to tell the unions that we have to break with the Democratic Party.
Right on!
Because as long as we're tied up to the hip to these Democrats, all we can expect is more of this same attacks on us, deals that we don't want, and swindles. Meanwhile, we get hurt. So let's build.
Yeah. So I'm from Occupy SFSU. I'm a student teacher there at Occupy SFSU, and I do a class on social movements. Has anybody ever participated in a social movement before here? Anybody? Is that what we're doing right now? Oh gosh, isn't this fun? Okay, so I'm currently $25,000 in debt, like many of my comrades back here, and I mean, I'm not feeling any of the harshness right now of this, but 6 months after I graduate or drop out, whichever comes first, I have to start paying back this $25,000, whether I have a job or not, and that's bullshit in the first place. So I'm really not too happy about that. So seeing the millionaires tax coming up and seeing an actual way for us to actually get some money back into the educational system is just fucking amazing. It's great. It's great. I love it. And then there's this word that comes along with Jerry Brown. It's co-optation. Isn't that awful? It's a terrible word, and we've seen it all before. We've all seen this thing called co-optation before. What is his measure? He wants to give us a point, is it 0.5% on the sales tax? That was his first one. What does the second one look like? 0.25% sales tax. It just looks really similar to me. And so that means that instead of just the rich people, you know, giving back for education, that means every single one of us has to give back for education. When, I don't know, I'm already paying lots of tuition. Lots and lots and lots and lots of tuition. When was it 20 years ago? It was about 10% of what it is now. And in 20 years before that, it was free. This is bullshit. This is just complete bullshit. So here's what I have to say. Why do we have to pay? Why do we have to pay? Why are we being taxed even more? Why is this the initiative when Chase Bank doesn't pay any taxes? When Bank of America doesn't pay any taxes? Yeah. Like, it's complete and total bullshit. And I'm already probably paying them my student loans as soon as, you know, I graduate anyway. So let's just stop the bullshit, please. Can we just tax the millionaires? Can we just do that? Right. Woo! All right, thank you.
Went with his against the millionaires tax, even though our local 10-to-1, the local SEIU here, fully supported and put up a lot of resources to get it started. So this is a kind of treachery. And then what happened after that, with the CTA and others, they attacked the remaining organizations, particularly the CFT and the other community organizations that were involved. This was, along with Governor Brown and these two largest unions in our state, took a position against the interest of not only their own membership, but of working people in California. Okay? And by the way, as a side, the State Council had spent 3 months, which I participated in, talking about their new mission statement, which talked about bold actions in the interest of working people, and not to be narrow-minded. And the first decision that was made after that was to go against the millionaires tax and support Brown. So there is some issues here that I think people should think about. Some people want to say, well, the CFT, they did organize and lead, which they did, and then when they could no longer go forward, and I argue that they really, you know, they could have perhaps, but in reality, it's nothing. They did not capitulate any more than when somebody's getting beat up and they're on the ground and they decide that they can't take any more beating, they say, I give up. Okay, that's not capitulation, that's being beat. Okay, and that's what happened. So don't blame the CFT, and don't blame the organizations that stayed with it, and that included the UAW and ILWU and a bunch of others that were at least supporting. You know, compare that, for instance, to the action of the CNA. The CNA endorsed us, and then as soon as the governor called them up, they said they wouldn't fund it. Okay, so there's a difference. There's a difference that has to be made here. And I think the other difference that has to be made and underlined is that even with us in our coalition, the idea of building a grassroots movement was not the central theme. Because, and it's understandable, because when you're in these circles, labor circles, there isn't, at the top, there isn't much confidence that they can build a grassroots movement. Now, and there hasn't been successful experience in that regard. And so for someone to be leery of that process is not that they're criminal, you know, not that they're, you know, they're backward and, you know, that's the current situation. But what happened with this grassroots movement? So let me give you some examples. One of the arguments of Dave Kiefer, who is the executive director of the SEIU State Council, was that what you need is just, you know, this is all Brown is going to give you. This is it. And we want to get some favors here. So that's all we're going to do. And there, you can't expect anything more. Well, what happened? With this movement, and even in its infancy and the early stages that we started, what happened? Brown had to make some concessions. And people may not say, well, they don't want to look at it that way, but in fact he did. And the wealthy, you know, instead of basically turned from a 40-60 split to an 85-15 split. Now, is that enough? Does that solve our problems? not really, because what was at the heart and soul of the millionaires tax was an opportunity for us to organize a grassroots movement and to have a real fight. And that's the response that we got, okay? People were very enthusiastic about that. So what's the lesson here is that if we in fact organize, we can accomplish a lot. At the same time, if we're going to organize, we also have to recognize our limitations. One of the things that I found in the work that I did here was that while people had the sentiment for it, and aside from some few individuals like Harry,
hat on. But it's a hat that indicates we've done battle with the leadership of the CTA for years and years, decades, on this question. And next weekend, I will be in Los Angeles at the CTA State Council, and I can assure you, I am not ready to give up on this. That said, we could debate some of the particulars of this. And quite honestly, it's not a question simply of public education. Prop 98, as some of you know, guarantees approximately 60% of the budget goes to public education. And part of the detractors who would attack the millionaires tax, including the CTA leadership, said, well, this money needs to go to the general fund in order to make sure that Prop 98 stays in place. Whatever the merits or limits of Prop 98, the real question is this. The question is business as usual or a totally different vision of what we want to see for the state, for this country, and for this world. That's the real issue. And the fact is that we could debate the merits or problems with some elements of regressive taxation. But really what this compromise is about is linking the effort to increase revenues to this governor's austerity budget and linking it to a neoliberal program that will tie, first and foremost, the real priority. What's the real priority for Governor Brown? Paying off the debt, the deficit. That's the real priority. Who are his friends? The bankers, the corporate leaders. He is trying to lead us in terms of supporting them, not acting in independent ways. That's the real issue. And I can assure you, the OEA will not give up this fight. Others will not give up this fight. And let me ask you, are you angry?
Yes.
Are you angry?
Yes.
Are you going to give up?
No.
Okay, keep up the fight.
It's just really, really marvelous to see everybody here today. And I think what we're showing today is that actually we're not going to be led by the noses in the wrong direction.
Right.
We were dealt earlier this year 2 cards by the governor. One said you have disaster. That's one card. The other card is take what I give you. Take these regressive taxes. CFT, credit to them, brought out a 3rd card. And that card was the millionaires tax. That was saying, no, we don't have to take this shit anymore. We know who's getting rich, and they can start paying. It's not a big amount, but it keeps going. The compromise tax, the governor's first initiative, all of those others, they die. We're not going away, we're not going to die, and we're not going to support things that are intended to die. This thing is going forward, and we're going to carry it there. And I thank everybody for starting this movement.
So within the past 10 years, UC funding, or the cost of UC tuition has risen pretty much. So within the past 10 years, so I'm Honest Chung from UC Berkeley, and within the past 10 years, UC tuition has risen nearly 300%. And both these policies have been pushed by both Republicans and Democrats. And this pattern makes one thing clear. Neither Republicans or Democrats are our friends, nor allies of public education or public services. To have this compromise with the Democrats is an utter betrayal. They talk about shared sacrifice, but they don't understand. Sacrifice is having to take on debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt. It's sacrifice is taking on tens of thousands of dollars of debt for a degree that's becoming increasingly worthless. Sacrifice is having to enter the workforce to merely pay off this debt. self-sacrifice is about. Entering the workforce just to keep yourself alive. So don't talk to me about self-sacrifice. At the university level, students don't understand the real power they have. In the past, just this past fall semester in Berkeley, mobilized thousands of students to combat the UC Regents' policy of privatization and their proposed agenda to raise tuition by 81%. We stopped that with mass mobilization. And at UC Berkeley, our own student government has betrayed their mandate to represent the students by siding with the administration, and this betrayal will not be forgotten. Right now, we're launching a campaign to take over our own student government, to create a student union, which this country horribly needs right now. In countries of Chile, Greece, all over Europe, all over the world, there's one thing in common that they have. They have a student union able to mobilize hundreds of thousands of students to fight back against its austerity measures. And we need to start that project right here in the United States, right now. And at Berkeley, that's happening with the Students for Democratic University.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm also with Students for a Democratic University from UC Berkeley. And I really feel you all, and because we all really are in this together for education and vital social services, that we can't keep doing without. And have to go with even more cuts will just hurt the population that's already suffering in this time.
You gotta speak right into the mic.
Right into the mic.
Yeah.
There we go. We know we are all in this together because we're all going to suffer increasingly if we have to fight these, or if we have to deal with more and more cuts to schools, both K-12 and higher education, and necessary social services. The thing about the Republicans and the Democrats is the Democrats can get away with cutting things like this because they know the unions won't fight back. And they think, oh, you know, we can negotiate with the Democrats, we can make them see reason, we can make them see why they have to, you know, be good, help the people. But no, it's not, because they are loyal to the corporate leaders and the billionaires as well. And they're not loyal to the people like they should be. So it really is up to us, and it's up to us to fight back. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you. Hey.
Hello. Hi everybody, my name is Jessica and I'm a student at City College of San Francisco. I just want to get a sense, how many people here are products of public education in California? Yeah, and how many people think that public education should be a right for everybody? Yeah, well I think that's really at the core of what the millionaires tax, the hope around the millionaires tax was, is the idea that everybody, regardless of their income, regardless of their documentation status, should have the right to free public education. And that's under attack. And I think that we have to say right now that we got to turn this around if we want to be able to see public education continue to be a right. How many people here are in unions? Woohoo! How many people here wish they were in unions? This is also about, I think, fighting for the public sector unions in this state. They're the largest group of unionized workers in this country are teachers, and so it's no coincidence that teachers have been under attack and have been effectively blamed for the crisis in public education. One of the things that the millionaires tax puts forward is that there is money in this country to pay for public education, and it's not going to come from students, teachers, workers, and other poor people in this state, but it's going to come from the millionaires and the billionaires and the people who've been doing great through this economic recession, and we have more of them in California than any state in this country. So I think one of the things that we want to put forward is a rejection of the idea of shared sacrifice, a rejection of the idea that we should pay any 1 cent more out of our pockets to bail out the banks and to fight and to basically pay off their crisis. And then I think the last thing is we have to fight for a movement that's independent of both political parties, because what we saw with the millionaires tax was that Jerry Brown was really effective in demoralizing and playing games with the CFT leadership, which was largely isolated among other unions, and we know why that is, and that's because there's been a cozy relationship with the union leadership and the Democratic Party for way too long. And I just want to say one thing about CFT. I think that the CFT was a total inspiration in putting forward the millionaires tax. And regardless of the fact that they went into negotiations and dealt a really, what I think is a really horrible compromise, I want to say that we need more of that kind of leadership coming from the union movement, because frankly I think their future and our future as students, teachers, workers are one and the same. This state is looking to crush all of the labor unions in order to crush all of our hopes at decent, free public education and our hopes at a decent wage in this state. So I want to just thank everybody for being here and say that, like, we have to continue to figure out how to push forward for the ideals of the millionaires tax, whether or not it still is the millionaires tax or it's the next thing that we're fighting for as a movement.
That we're not going to take it for...
Hi, I'm Jack Gerson. I'm a retired Oakland teacher, and I was also at the Santa Fe Elementary rally. And I want to say what they're doing there in Oakland is criminal. They're trying to reach the tipping point where public education has completely failed. There was a parent who spoke. He lives on Alcatraz Avenue. That's all the way up at the north border of Oakland, the Oakland-Berkeley border. They're busing his son, who's in elementary school, to 81st Avenue and San Leandro Street. That's out past the Oakland Coliseum, past Coliseum BART. That kid is on a bus like 2 or 3 hours a day. There's no reason for this except that they are trying deliberately to clobber public education. There used to be 3 elementary schools serving the North Oakland area. Now there's 1. There are 250 students in it. They're chasing everybody out. They're trying to deprive us of resources, increase class size, make it, and send and increase charter schools. The charter schools have gone from 2,000 students in 2002 to over 8,000 students now, and their plans are to go well over 10,000. They are trying to destroy public education in Oakland. Now, in the black and brown community, there are 3 high schools that have served the black and brown community in Oakland for decades. They're Castlemont High School, where I taught, in Deep East Oakland. There's Fremont High School, which mainly serves Fruitvale area, and there's McClymonds serving West Oakland. They are making all the teachers in those schools reapply for their jobs this year and every year. They're doing that in order to try to break the union. If they break the union, they'll be able to then increase class size further, gut resources further, introduce more charter schools, and destroy public education. In order to destroy public education completely in this country, they have to go over the unions. That's why it's in everyone's interest to fight with the union, why it's in the union's interest to fight for more resources, more of what students need, more of what the community needs, smaller class size. So we need to fight together on this. If we fight together, we can win. If we don't fight together, they're just going to continue to divide us with more charter schools, more battering, more intensification of teacher turnover, which is in Oakland is one of the greatest teacher turnover rates in the country, meaning teachers stay 1 or 2 years, leave. That's planned by the district, which is trying to chase out veteran teachers. So they're doing all of this to destroy public education. It's critical that people appear at the March 28th board meeting and tell the school board what we really need. Demand that they stop this attack. Demand no more school closures, reopen the schools they plan to close, get class size back to where it was, should be down to below 20 in kindergarten, not over 30, which we're seeing in many schools now, and end the union busting at Castlemont, Fremont, and McClymonds. Thank you.
Education must be free, no cuts, no fees. Education must be free, no cuts, no fees. Education must be free, no cuts, no fees. Education must be free, no cuts.
Hi, my name is Andy Lipson. I'm a member of United Educators of San Francisco. I'm also at Mission High School. I've been part of Occupy Education, supporter, and collecting petitions for the millionaire tax for at least a month. And also part of the Action Council, the San Francisco Occupy San Francisco group. I just got here, and just got here from talking to a number of teachers who basically are pretty pissed off about 2 things. One, in San Francisco, we're seeing a bunch of layoffs, about 495 layoffs. When around the school district, around the Bay Area, there's very few layoffs, all right? The reason that's happening is because the Board of Ed San Francisco mayor want to get tough on the teachers and basically say, we're going to lay you off and intimidate you in a contract year. The reason I start with that story is I think a similar thing is actually happening to the millionaires tax. That is, they're basically telling us that we have to give in, that we have to accept a 0.25% tax on our side in order to get a little bit more money. And I think accepting that bargain, there's basically means the end or the death of the idea of standing up for the 99%. So I'm very, very happy to see you out here today. I wasn't really sure what the turnout would be, but I'm really glad to see folks understand that accepting this compromise, which it only seems like 0.25% small, but if you are earning $10,000 or $13,000 a year, which puts you in the lowest bottom 20%, that's a gigantic piece of money that we're saying, or that the governor's saying, you should pay your share and the rich will pay theirs. That's the idea of shared sacrifice, all right? We have to reject the idea of shared sacrifice. The first thing to say is the gap between the richest, the income level of the richest people in California and those that are in the middle quintile, like the 40% to 60%, is 33 to 1. That's 33 to 1. So a fair tax, if you're even going to call it a fair tax, would mean the rich would have to get taxed at 33 times higher than us. This one we got is 8 to 1. That's not fair. That's not fair for the middle quintile. All right? In reality, nothing is fair other than our side being taxed zero. In fact, we should have sales taxes eliminated ultimately because they're completely regressive. And the wealthy have more than enough money to pay, not just in terms of income, but in terms of wealth, in terms of corporate income and corporate wealth. None of that is being touched. None of that is being touched except for some slight increase. What is it for the 250 people who make $250,000? 3%, 4%, I'm not really sure, but it's nothing. It's nothing. And really, the people who make $250,000 are not the problem. It's the people who make millions, it's the people who make billions in this state and in this country. And that was so important about the millionaires tax, and that's why it's so important we stand up for it, because we're basically telling people we are not for taxing our side, we're for taxing the very, very richest, and this is just the beginning. Oh.
Okay. I'm Katherine Johnson. I'm from San Francisco State University. I came across the bridge for this meeting because I want to raise an issue that I don't know really has been raised. Did you see the paper? The university closes the door on new admissions. They've decided they can't raise tuition, and so they're going to deal with the other strategy for undercutting public education, which is reducing access. When you go to... Whoa! What? No. Yeah, well, but I want to tell you something. I mean, I have looked at the Brown, I've looked at the compromise, and I've looked at the millionaires tax. And the millionaires tax talks about using the money to fund the education, K through 12, CSU, and UC. The Brown tax initiative in the beginning or the compromise tax mentions nothing about UC and CSU. So if you want your kids to go to college, you've got to understand what's happening. What's happening is not only do we want to end public education from K through 12, but you want to end public education for college students, the access to the middle class that is already disappearing. People are talking about whether the percentage is, worth compromising on, regressive, progressive, but I'm really practical. I agree with all that stuff. But you've got to focus on CSU and UC, or there's no future.
Millionaires tax. There's a couple of big differences. One is that the millionaires tax has no regressive tax elements. That means it doesn't have a sales tax component, which is the big one. Like, It's time for working people in California to stop paying for the crisis. That's basically what I think. We've paid enough already. Any increase in the sales tax is an unfair burden on the people who can least afford to pay. So that's the biggest one. The other big question for me as a K-12 teacher is this idea of where the money goes. In the compromise, it goes generally into the fund of money in the state, and it's not specifically targeted for public education and public services. The millionaires tax, 60% was guaranteed pre-K through 12, but also CSUs, UCs, and community colleges. There's no such guarantee for where the money goes in the compromise. And so we've been chronically underfunded, partly because they keep saying there's a crisis and there's no money. So $2 billion was already borrowed from K-12 a few years ago, and we never got that back. So supposedly there's guarantees, but in the millionaires tax is actually a real legitimate body set up to oversee where the money goes. So that's the big differences. But basically what I wanted to say is part of the reason we're out here is not just to promote the millionaires tax, but to begin to rebuild this movement, not only around progressive taxation, but around fully funding public education and social services. And so I want to just encourage people to get involved. It isn't just about this, it is bigger than this, and this is a huge reason why the millionaires tax was so popular, is it really spoke to a movement of people who want to see something different. It speaks to the demands of the Occupy movement about justice for the 99%, not the 1%, and that we're tired of paying for their crisis.